one of the questions that Michael actually asked me when he was talking about putting this panel together is it important to even have a women's panel? So after we introduce ourselves, then that's the first question I want to dive into. So, all right, let's get started. I believe in being on time and timely. So I would love for my distinguished panel to introduce themselves. We'll start right here at my right with Stacey.
Yeah, my name is Stacey Schneider. I'm the VP of Marketing for Provide. I am not listed on the panel, so I'm jumping into the hot seat, but I have definitely been on a lot of the women in blockchain panels with these lovely women up here. They're all friends. We've got a good community here of women in blockchain in Atlanta. So yeah.
Awesome. My name is Linda Goetze, and I'm the president of the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. I got into blockchain through buying Bitcoin in 2012. So it's been an interesting time to watch the ebb and flow of the markets and also the adoption of blockchain as a technology and a world changer. And I was just recently in Davos and was very it was an eye-opening experience because I saw the level of players worldwide that are looking at blockchain as a solution and are investing in it and are believing that it is going to change the world as we know it. So for me, that was really neat. And it's not just happening in what the typical centers that you might think of Tokyo or London. I was also in Istanbul, Turkey, and the president of the Blockchain Association of Eurasia was there and sharing with me the innovation that's happening in that part of the world. So there's so much going on, there's so much good that can be done, and I'm just happy to be a part of it and helping build the ecosystem that we're all going to be participating in. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Strickler, and I actually work here at Georgia State University. I'm the Director of Media Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and I've recently become the Director of the Blockchain Lab here, too.
Congratulations.
And I was also in Davos. And which is so ironic, because we tried to meet here, and we didn't meet, and then we didn't even know each other. We're in Davos.
Davos together.
But I feel the similar sentiment, which is that it's also a different mind shift, like a paradigm shift, in my opinion, which is definitely not the get-rich schema, and I know most people are here beyond that at this point in time, but there was a lot of people that were looking at entire ecosystems and how this technology can change them, as opposed to financial systems, but holistic ways where sustainability is as equal a part of the incentive as money is, and so that's just one interesting thing, but we'll talk a lot more here.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And so I want to lead back in with the question I started with. Do you think that a women's panel is even necessary?
Well, I'd like to say no, but that's a little bit too altruistic. I don't think that we've done a good enough job still to break down the barriers and to educate women to how to cope, because a lot of the stuff that we do is behaviors that are innate to us that we don't operate quite the same. I mean, there's truth to that. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Like, there is some ways that we do things different. And so I think that there does need to be a little bit more of a network of support in order to be sponsors of women to do things, because sometimes we did a study with Harvard or MIT, one of those two up there, and they said, they found out that women, if you look at a resume or a job posting, right, and there's 8 requirements, and maybe it says you need to have 5 to 8 years experience, well, I've got 2, I don't qualify. Women are a lot more honest, and boys are a lot more bullish. And it's I can go do that. I can talk to it at least, whatever you're going to learn it on the job. Women need a little bit more sponsorship to be you got this. I mean, they say that's a rough guideline, but you actually really are qualified, and that motivates a woman to move forward. We kind of follow into the lines and kind of work in the group dynamic and try to follow the rules more than men do. So I do think that things like this are good to go provide sponsorship and encouragement and just kind of bring it under light.
I think that having to ask that question just begs the question, why do we see so many events with the disparity of just general panels being just men or just women or just Asian or just, pick your demographic. Why do we do that? Maybe it's because there's certain groups that are underrepresented in those general panels. So we do have a lot of, white men filled panels, or, the speakers are in general, if you look at the numbers, and I've seen a lot of events, and it's almost like event coordinators or initiators are saying, well, we have to give a nod to women because that's what's supposed to, we have to represent them. So let's do it by having a women's panel. I don't think that's so cool. Personally, sitting here on a woman's panel. I think we should see more representation on the tech panels, on the panels that talk about the ecosystem, the panels that are discussing technology in worldwide innovation, or the panels that are talking about education. Let's see more women be represented as part of the ecosystem, rather than let's say, oh, women do belong in the blockchain ecosystem by having a panel of women. So I know that may not be a, yeah, that's my opinion there.
So I'm just going to kind of, sort of a new idea just popped in my head, which is that sort of the entree into blockchain has been a lot of technology, and so technology is still dominated by the white male, and so that's where we're getting a lot of the influx. But if you were going to have a group, or if there was a new technology based on mothering or parenting, I'm sorry, I totally made a mistake, parenting, it would be the women that would be organizing that, and men would need a lot of encouragement and support groups and stuff to come around. So right now I think that women need some encouragement to kind of jump on in, and that this is a whole ecosystem and not just about technology. So in that regard, I do think that we need women's panels, women's groups. And back to Davos for a second. First of all, when you look at a global ecosystem, oh my gosh, America has got it so good as far as how women are supported. And you just see, men just knock you out of the way walking down the street. It was crazy. But they had a lot of really cool support systems there. One was the Female Quotient, which was an all women's, event going on the whole week. And then Consensus did a Women in Blockchain, and I met the coolest women. Women who were advising NASA on how to structure life on Mars. And oh my gosh, it's just the craziest stuff ever. So yeah, go women.
Yeah, I'm gonna explain why I'm wearing this outfit. Looks like a nurse's outfit. I wore it today. I have actually done real stuff with neuroscience and neurotherapy, and that's why I actually own this for real. But I'm not a nurse, and I don't pretend to be one. But the reason I'm wearing it is because our ecosystem, when it comes to how women are objectified at major events, is sick. And I say that from having just posted a comment on LinkedIn in relation to how they were objectified in Malta, and I've commented on how they've been objectified at the last Miami event. It is just an unfortunate aspect of our current ecosystem that I believe that what we have here with the TAB conference is a phenomenal positive example of what this ecosystem should be representing, should be focused on, and should be doing in helping take away that objectification of females as, the beauty in the body, but not the brains. So I'm blonde, I know, and I've dealt with that, the dumb blonde in the deep south since I was a kid. But it doesn't define anybody, what they look like, What defines us as women in this space is what we do. And the solutions that we bring to the table, the connections that we make, that's where the power lies. And women are connectors. Women know how to draw together and build community. And the more women that realize that the tech side of this doesn't need to keep them out, if they're not a deep technologist or a coder, the more powerful the community building will be in blockchain. So to me, this is an opportunity, as on a female panel, to give a shout out for that and say the way things have been done needs to change. The objectification of women needs to change. And that's going to happen by people who have a voice, who get on social media after they've seen a bunch of pictures posted of half-naked women dancing on stage at an event and say, that's not okay. That shouldn't represent our ecosystem. So, sorry.
And if you guys haven't been to a large, a conference outside of Atlanta, one of the major conferences, a lot of times what you do see is girls in bikinis. Talking about Bitcoin.
Didn't they have one like in December and their after party was actually at a strip club?
Right. So,
Miami.
I mean, these are the type of, situations that we're kind of put in when we're in a male-dominated space. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to even just bring the question up, specifically to say, did you have a question, ma'am?
Yeah, do you think that the objectification of women is a problem globally, or do you think it's just in the blockchain space?
Of course, it's globally,
No,
but when
it's
when we're
everything
talking
in
about,
IT.
exactly,
100%.
But when we're talking about specifically women in the blockchain space, as one of the proponents of women in the space, going to a conference like we're coming here, I'm the mindset of thinking that I'm going to go and just get really good information is what it's like our baseline is. But then when you go to some of the larger conferences, and I say larger because those are where I've seen most of the objectification. Women have on swimsuits. Like, what do you need with a swimsuit on? We're talking about Bitcoin. Who needs on a swimsuit?
So, like, traditionally, my background is in aviation, right? So it's completely male-dominated, completely this whole, white male thing. But the reason for that is obviously because that's kind of what was the leading, and the only real people group back then when they were building this business. But it's interesting because now you have all these women who are coming in, a lot of them are intelligent, like you said, you do have these, we are community builders, right? And so you're seeing people being drawn from all these different industries into this one because this industry changes every other industry, right? But then you have the women who are just like in anywhere in the world that you go, I feel like you're gonna come across women who are willing to use their physical assets because that's what they've been taught gives them value. And then you have those women who are like, hey, I actually also have a brain, right? And those, it's really good to highlight those women, I feel like, versus putting down the other women who maybe they actually aren't as smart, so they can't represent themselves in a certain way.
Right. Well, thank you. Yes. So let's move on to one of our questions. Will we see a trend with companies transitioning more into blockchain? I already know the answer to this, but I think it's the easy one.
So, if you don't mind, I'll take that one because we just did a study with Emory University and Aprio, it's one of the sponsors here today. And we conducted a study of 82 companies, large and small. I mean, I'm talking multi-billion-dollar companies, Fortune 50, all the way down to some startups. And 63% of them said that it was a lot of the tools and the skills that they just don't have internally, yet 75% of them believe that they will have adopted it in some way in their organization by 2025. So right now, they're the same amount of people are saying that they're frustrated and they don't understand and they need to learn, and it's hard to even map it and grok it in their minds, but they think that there is reason to do it. And we're waiting for some lighthouse patterns that people can go and repeat and get success and enhance and and cycle through so that we get quicker adoption. But they're looking to see quite a big hockey stick. I mean, to give you also the Gartners of the world or the IDCs of the world say that last year, I think the size of the market, the blockchain market, was 1.8 billion, and by 2030, it's predicted to be 3.1 trillion. So, I mean, we're talking 70% compound growth or higher for the next 11 years. So, yes, I do think it is going to happen.
Yeah, that's an easy answer. I believe that 2019 is the year of the platform, and that's what's going to be what facilitates this adoption curve. And it's like you said.
I like what you say. I have a platform.
Thank you very much. Well, exactly, and the Provide platform, who they're one of the sponsors here, is a great example of that. And providing solutions that can be white labeled and implemented really is the wave of the future. It's how the blockchain integration into everyday business is going to happen. The more convenient that you make implementation, the more likely it is to happen. So the platforms that are going to be winning are the ones that create a user interface that makes these companies looking at it going, I know I should use blockchain. I think this is my use case. They get that all wrapped up. They go, okay, we need it. You give them a user interface that anybody that works for them can understand and start working on day one. That's where the real adoption is going to happen. It's the user interface that has to tie into the backbone of the blockchain and work. So the platforms that make that happen are going to be huge winners.
So I think that from what I hear, I don't have any studies from Emory or MIT or Harvard, but from what I hear, and what I know, most large companies are very deep into this. They're not making it public for multiple reasons. It's embarrassing to not really know everything about what's going on, and that's pretty much the case of all of us really right now, but it's a really uncomfortable position. And also they're not going to base a business on something they don't even understand or even have a platform or have a way to dig into it. But I also see that there's a lot of bubbling up of, so I see a lot of stuff coming from up here and a lot of stuff coming from up here. I hear what you're saying about platforms. My big belief right now is what we're doing is practicing simulations. So I feel like we're putting these things out and they're sort of test case scenarios, and pretty much everything we're seeing is an experiment. And simulations and games and game theory and small ecosystems and the avant-garde, I don't know if anybody was in the art panel, but sort of really doing little experiments to see how humans function in this totally new way is what's really happening right now in a really fascinating place, in my opinion.
Oh, yes.
I also think that there'll be some additional things. We're making a lot about the fact that it's blockchain, right? And we just hit that trough of disillusionment. And the reality is that while we're going to be using blockchain, it can't be about it just can't be about it for the sake of being blockchain. That was back when we learned this lesson in open source, when you can't just say it's open source and they will come. You actually have to do something that's worth value. And I think that some of the first things that are really going to get adoption, that are going to get us clued into this is the technical strategy behind the business thing, will actually make it oblivious that it's blockchain. So you're gonna have, you're gonna have the Walmarts of the world who just rolled out their first phase of the food trust on the 31st, right? They're being able to prove that they're gonna be able to, the next time that we have a problem with the lettuce, romaine lettuce with E. coli, right? It takes them 7 days right now to go track it back with all the manual pieces, and their blockchain solution reduces that to 2.2 seconds. So that means that, not everybody's going to be losing that value. The lettuce prices went down by 45% afterwards, and they had to go kill the inventory for so many different people. That was a lot of money that got impacted on those things. And it's going to be those things where, okay, well, Walmart now just knows immediately and avoids problems like that. It's not going to be about blockchain. It's going to be well, how did they do that? And then blockchain is explained.
Well,
yeah, Walmart is actually a really good example.
we had a great conversation about it earlier. We're looking at a transition where a huge company like Walmart, who is the biggest employer in the U.S., when they designate that, and they actually have, right? They've said that by 2030?
Is it 2020, 2030? If you're not on blockchain, you can't be a supplier at Walmart. That is where Walmart is going to. So what that means is everybody who wants to give toys, food, be a part of that e-commerce system will have to be on blockchain. I mean, and that to me is one of the ways that we're going to see the overspill. One of the ways that we're going to be using blockchain and not even know it. Another example too is, does anybody do government contracts or know about government contracts in the room? If you go to the smallbusiness.gov, the federal business government contract, and Google blockchain, I think about 6 jobs come up now. So the government is putting out RFPs, seeking blockchain business to come in. And once our government starts instituting things and we're using these technologies and we don't necessarily know what's running it, but we're a part of using it, it becomes like a part of what we do.
Yeah, you can go to individual states too, like Vermont, and they're putting out requests to have blockchain solutions presented to them. So this is definitely an invasive technology. It is entering every aspect of what we know, and yeah, government's
I
just
think the state of Illinois already has their citizens on it too.
yeah, no, there's so many. I mean, Florida's accepting taxes, Ohio's accepting taxes in cryptocurrency.
Georgia accepts taxes too.
In
It's a way to know
cryptocurrency.
if you've got crypto right now. It's not actually very useful, but it's like, oh, we should audit your crypto.
So do you guys know any woman-led projects that you're following? Do you have any? One of my favorite woman-led projects is Pangea. It used to be, oh my goodness, it's a citizenship coin. She created the, I can't think of the other name for it, but now it's Pangea. And she's been working on the citizenship coin for, she's out of, I think, Russia or Asia, anyway, but it's a lady. And her whole point is for people to be able to be a citizen of the world, not necessarily a citizen of where you live. And that's one of my projects that I like.
Yeah, I've recently been on the phone with Grace Schroeder, and she has Octo. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, or Slinger.io. Slinger. Have you heard of her platform at all?
No.
Okay, she's a fantastic co-founder. The reason she comes to mind is she and her male co-founder, whose name is Beck, have done a little experiment, and they have been reaching out to exchanges and to token providers, people that engineer smart contracts. And the neat thing about their platform is they're providing a interface between tokens and exchanges that are having a difficult time dealing with the different blockchains that these tokens are being built on. So a number of them, they can only take ERC20s, and as we go into the adoption of security tokens, this is something that is pretty important. We're having new technologies, new blockchains being developed, and you have exchanges that can't support. So what we have with the Octo project is an interface. So I love what they're doing, but the experiment that they did was they would send to the same companies, to the same exchanges, and one email would be the female founder's name as the sender, and then the other one would be the male founder's name. And they got over 50% higher open rate for the emails that were sent by the male founder, even though everything else, the title, the content, everything else was the same. The female founder was just being marginalized for having a woman's name. And that's just an unfortunate reality that still currently exists, and I'm trying to be part of changing that. So if I can say, Grace Schroeder, check it out, shout out to Octo, to Slinger, great platform. If you know any exchanges or anybody that works with token creation, definitely connect. What they're doing is creating an interface that allows for enterprise to take it from the beginning to the end, regardless of the platform, and or the base blockchain being used. And it's another example of women that are stepping up and doing great things in tech, regardless of marginalization.
Well, I just want to add in, I don't remember her name, but I met her at the Consensus Women in Blockchain, and
Is that on the top of the mountain?
no, I went there too.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, me too.
This was a woman who works for IOTA, which is a DAG, not a blockchain, and we can talk all about that later. But anyway, she was looking at, I really liked your comment about community building, because she was looking at ways to incentivize people around things like sustainability, proof of work, but more about proof of your own work, not about like solving a weird problem. So she was really looking at really unique ways of incentivizing people using their IOTA platform, and I was just really blown away with her, and just saw a lot of people who were looking at different ways to build communities. And I find that portion of all the women that I met doing that kind of work is just really fascinating. And it's not as, you don't get the kind of glamour for doing that. And you don't get the name, and you don't get the recognition. I can't even remember her name. I remember Ayada. But anyway, I just, so it's really more the collective that I'm kind of seeing women be a part of. Yes?
I'd also like to note that Marie-Antoinette is the founder of Ledger, which is doing extraordinarily well on multiple fronts. They've gone beyond just forming the protocol to actually now monetizing it. And the second is Judith Steiner, who is the co-founder of Polkadot, and it's been announced just in the last week that has been given a valuation in many areas of about $1 billion in value. And they had done a very successful ICO a year ago, or a year and a half ago.
Thank you. There's another one.
I like the audience answering this. This is good.
I know, it's great.
I was just thinking like a patient Tories, like local, and they're
Krista.
yeah, and they have healthcare on the blockchain. So
I want to jump in real quickly here because you mentioned ICOs and obviously Patient Tory is a local ICO. One of the things that we've seen with the ecosystem is that you have this fear of the SEC, and ICOs are kind of like this going, there's a firing squad in front of them and they're wondering if they're going to be rubber bullets, real bullets, or blanks, coming out of those guns. And I do, as we're talking about women in this space, I do want to give a shout out for Hester Pierce with the SEC. I know the SEC does not get a lot of love in most blockchain events. There is that fear factor that's a part of things, but she did just come out and make a lot of really positive comments, and I think she was the standout dissent when the Winklevoss twins were denied their ETF again. So she is actually advocating for responsible regulation, and I believe one of those champions for the blockchain space in the heart of the SEC. So that's perspective.
I just remembered another one that I listen to all the time, Laura Shen. Yeah. If you all listen to Unconfirmed and Unchained podcasts, highly recommended. And she's doing a Vitalik Buterin soon. I listen to her every day almost. And so actually, yes.
You thought of another one?
I think this, to be honest with you, is a little bit absurd because we've got plenty of examples.
Yes.
It's very solid. But Katie Kwan, the former assistant U.S. attorney who prosecuted the Ripple case, who prosecuted the sort of insider abuse in the government vis-a-vis the Mt. Gox and Silk Road cases. She also was the first woman, she's the head of the audit committee for Coinbase on the board, and is also the lead co-partner on a $300 million investment fund established by Andreessen Horowitz.
That is awesome.
Women rock all over the freaking
And
world.
it would be nicer if it were just more common. because even us, we're having to ring up names in
Yeah,
our
I know.
head, I do want to talk about the topic of new startups and the ICO and the STO. Like, how do you think that that's affecting blockchain people in general, but women?
I don't know what the women implication in that is, but I'm glad the ICO craze is over. I think that it was indicative of hacks and people that didn't really have the stripes to do real business. It's not an easy slog to go build a startup. I mean, I'm mired firmly in one right now, and like it's not even a consideration to go after an ICO. Like, we actually have to build a good business model, get investors that are going to help advance your business. There is a pattern to how businesses have been doing this for a while, and an ICO is a cheat in many ways.
It was seen as a good way for women investors to be able to raise money without having to find VCs and to.
It was a cheat for anybody, women or male. Like, you've got to go do the right thing in order to build a business. There is a due diligence process. You need to know what your financials are. You need to know what your customer is. You need to go carve out your market category. You need to go own it. And if you don't have actual value and business doing that, then an ICO is, you're a fraud. You are. And I generally don't look good on it. Thanks.
I'm going to talk about the happy side of STOs. No,
There is some things where if you're going to go do something with loyalty, or there's an actual reason for a coin, like there has to be a real reason for it. Otherwise, it's a cheat.
yeah.
Let's let Linda share her.
The Blockchain Chamber of Commerce is token and platform agnostic, and so I say that as a caveat. And I don't like to get in the weeds with. There are great examples of projects that went the ICO route when that was really seen as legitimate, and they are producing what they put out that they would produce. And those projects are standing up after the fact what they may well have been able to stand up without having done an ICO. They may have been able to do traditional. They may not have been. So I don't want to put judgment into the way things were done. I want to look into what's happening with STOs, and I've been on the phone with a number of CEOs of exchanges. I was on the call where this just blew my mind. I was like, is that for real? There's only 3 legally currently exchanged STOs. 3. Yeah, there's only 3. And we're talking about them like they're just, all over the place, and there are 3 currently legally exchangeable anywhere. So when we look at STOs and the compliance that needs to be done and all of the regulations that are still unclear in many respects, I think part of the role of the chamber is to help clarify. And we're working with people in Washington, we're working with the owners of the exchanges, we're talking to people around the world that are part of this process that we're all talking about, that we throw STO around like, yeah, we got that. Yeah, we're doing an STO. Like, okay. There is a very in-depth process. There is a pathway that's being built currently. So this conversation needs to be around realities, and we are in the evolution of this process. So I don't want to knock the last iteration with ICOs. I want to say, how can we work together to make this next iteration really be one that supports the industry, that supports the community at large with solutions, that gives secondary liquidity. I'm going to be doing a talk tomorrow about the Opportunity Zone funds, and I believe that tokenization is what is necessary to provide the secondary liquidity to make those funds actually do what they're supposed to do and not end up dropping those communities, those opportunity zones on their heads after these tax benefits are wrapped up. So we've got a lot of work to do, and it's people that are still serious and here at events like this during this time of consolidation that are going to help make these positive changes happen. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for caring, and look forward to see what we're going to get done together.
Well, I want to jump right off of that because I teach here at this university, and so part of the ecosystem is building up a super strong knowledge base about blockchain, about decentralization, about creating communities, about incentivization, about game theory, about economics. And you all, so I'm helping sort of start to build that community. Of course, I'm focused a lot more on media and using this technology in that space, but you all, as sort of the extended community of Georgia State, when I ask you to come and speak and come teach students so that they can have a really solid ground on how to start businesses or start companies or whether not to do it, and just building up a really good ecosystem. That's what we're hoping to do here at Georgia State. So thank you again for being here.
So what changes do you think blockchain could possibly have on environmental factors? Like whether it's saving our environment or creating tokens for our environment. What do you guys think about that?
There's a lot of fun stuff going on worldwide. Have you seen the $10 bills that are actually a solar cell?
No.
Oh my gosh, like there's such cool stuff being done. So you have a bill that's worth, I don't know if it's $10 or 10 pounds, it depends on where you're buying it, I guess. But it's a solar cell, and the value of it is exactly what it costs to create that solar cell. But what that solar cell can do is be connected to a energy, flow system, and it can be connected to mine cryptocurrencies. It can be connected to provide a free flow of electricity for, whatever it is that you need electricity for, right? But it's a way to redefine value and money and have something that you could pull out of your pocket and spend as $10 also be something that can create more value over time. And I think that's what I'm seeing in our ecosystem is that blockchain is going to be creating more value over time. And sometimes on the front end, that production, people knock Bitcoin because it's a proof of work and all the energy that it takes to produce, and there's that argument. And then there's the argument of, well, what are the technologies that are built on that framework doing that are taking away from the negative aspects of energy production, and how are we using this for the good? So I think that conversation is continuing, and there's a lot of neat innovation that's around it. And when I was at Davos, there was a really strong community that were focused on targeting blockchain technology towards these types of environmental solutions, and doing it, many of them in third world countries to start with. And I think with us here, we're a little fat and happy in the U.S. And don't have some of the incentives that the third world countries do to create these changes. But there's a lot of good that's coming.
Yeah. I mean, I just reiterate that I think that we're seeing a shift in what is valuable. And really, I mean, what is money valuable for? It's a certain point, once you're comfortable, fat and happy, and again, that's a luxury that many of us have, but what do you want the rest of your excess to go towards? And we're seeing now that value in companies and individuals and nonprofits, pretty much all of them are seeing a more holistic view of what is value, which is sustaining the planet, sustaining the world population, and not just about getting a yacht or win Lambo or whatever. Yes.
Really quick. One of the conversations I've had recently is about the Green New Deal. Have you guys heard about that on the news? Well, the Green New Deal is what they call this crazy, fantastical way of thinking about how we can change our environment. And a big part of the Green New Deal is a carbon tax. And one of the people that I was talking to, they're trying to create a platform for a carbon tax on the blockchain. So that's one of the places where I can see blockchain technology really.
There's carbon credit tokens that are on the blockchain already, and there's more that are going to be built. So yeah, that is an aspect of it as well.
I think that carbon one might even be female run too.
There's one down in Australia that is. So, but that's just a.
I think that. Oh, sorry. Oh, I was going to say one of my favorite ideas that breaks open business for blockchain breaks open is the idea of creating peer-to-peer marketplaces. And I actually live like part-time in a third world country, and we got ravaged by hurricanes. And it would be incredible if we didn't have to wait for the power company to make it, you know, through all the other more populated islands until they get to us, and we could get power turned back on, because we were actually able to have a microgrid on our island where we could have solar power that we could go bring in on our own selves and share with our neighbors. We went for 9 months. Go ahead. So those are big things that could actually help a lot of different kind of countries and places after disaster. There's lots of possibilities.
And one thing that's really cool too is that this whole idea of proof of work destroying the environment. You've actually, if they call it Satoshi's second gift, we've actually got incentives. You've actually got incentives for people to want to build, you know, green energy solutions, because now they're validating this form of money. And then another thing that comes up too when they talk about, oh, how proof of work is ruining the environment, it's like, all right, let's think about the cloud, right? It's really not this ethereal thing up in the air. It's rooms and data centers and energy that's being used. And so it's kind of like, you know, I just wish that the metrics were pulled on how much energy the cloud uses, because I'm sure it uses quite a bit, but people are only challenging it because this new, like this blockchain and Bitcoin, it challenges what is currently existing. So Satoshi, there's now just like the form for green energy is now incentivized, which is really cool.
Yeah, and there's a local example here in Atlanta called Energen that is working to actually do green energy production to do the mining and provide data centers and have that be clean energy. Carbon neutral, and work with carbon tokens, and there's a whole. You're right. It's building an ecosystem to support responsible use of our world.
Yeah,
so
previously the only incentive was like some tax breaks, right?
Yeah.
Which were not. I mean, people would just put up these like solar energy grids on their homes, and there was really no benefit to anybody, but they just wanted the tax break. So that's not a good incentive.
And you don't get the tax break for putting it on your home. You get the tax break for the receipt that you paid for it.
Yeah.
Nobody comes to check to see if it's really on your house.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I have a question. If I could maybe ask each of you, what is blockchain and what's new about it? What's the novelty? I'd be curious to know what each of you are thinking there.
Well, I see blockchain as a decentralized ledger. Is something that can, with a open to the public ledger, something that we could use for transparency. That's one of my favorite things when it comes to blockchain.
I see blockchain as one of the biggest shifts in technology since client server. I think that what we're doing is we're actually democratizing data, and we're putting a fat layer of data into the internet, and that shifts the roles of privacy, which we're clearly going with CCPA and GDPR. Clearly, we're fed up with the way that privacy has been, where companies own specific data and they control things, and maybe we like the one throat to choke, but it's done wrong, and we don't have the proper voice and governance. And I think that this is going to be the biggest change for how we handle data and how we build applications and share things. So I think that it's amazing.
It's just another data bank. No, there's controversy whether blockchain equals DLT or is private permissioned really blockchain, and I don't know what kind of weeds you want us to get into, but okay. Distributed ledger technology that allows for a different way for information and value. Let me say value exchange. For there to be a value exchange peer-to-peer, I think that's been one of the biggest shifts, that's possible. It's actually putting power back into my hands, into your hands, to be able to make decisions about our data, about how we transfer what we hold valuable, whether that's art, whether it's transferring the fiat cash in our pockets into a digital format that we can then just send very quickly and inexpensively to anywhere and anybody we want. Those applications of blockchain, I think, are changing the world. And whether there's big companies using private permissioned or small groups just doing internal ecosystems with a distributed ledger that is also very decentralized within their area, their group, however they're playing it, it doesn't matter. It's changing the way the world works.
So I'll just add, I think maybe two slightly different ideas is that now that money is digitized, it's like data. And so now we're treating data like money. So I find that really fascinating. And so now we're putting sort of a provenance on data that's much more serious than we used to. So that's really super fascinating to me. And then I also think that the way that we're organizing people in consensus is hugely interesting. And that's why, and how we organize, and that's why we're citizens of the world now and not citizens of a nation state. And I think that we're gonna start to see a whole different shift in how we collaborate and organize, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah, blockchain's really putting the world into the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we are at the end of our panel. Thank you so much, ladies. Do we have any more questions really
Thank
quick?
y'all.
Were there any more
girls.
questions really quick? Then we'll shut
Any
it
other
down.
questions?
One more question,
Kevin
yes.
Pham.
Have you ever had an example of feeling, besides seeing, scantily clad women at conferences, like have you felt, online, like uncomfortable in participating in the community?
Well, we only have a few minutes, but maybe we can all give one tip, one woman's tip to what to expect when you're in a man's world. Just because now the one thing that I will find irritating, but I have really high self-esteem, so I don't let it bother me, is being dismissed. Yeah. I think that is probably the thing that is done the most often, where when I'm talking to someone in the space, if they're highly technical, if they're, and if I'm not using that language, immediately dismissed. Like, that's one of the things that I don't like.
I'm a technologist. I'm hands-on, but I also run marketing, and I come into companies over time. And I had one 2 years ago. It was literally my second day, and they were into serious problems with their go-to-market, and I got put onto their Slack. And one of the girls in marketing had done something wrong or like misphrased something, and the entire Slack channel, it was literally 98 messages were GIFs about how stupid the women in marketing were. And I was horrified, and I was like, if you guys can't get marketing behind you, you guys don't have a product. You can be building the most brilliant diamond out there, but if you can't communicate that to the market, you isolate the rest of your team, you're gonna fail. And they pretty much are.
Thank you for the question. What we need to do as women, going to the giving advice part, is don't tell them, show them. And we can hold our own, we can be change makers. I say we can, but I also say that we are. And being the exemplar of a powerful woman, somebody who can change things and doing it, I think is going to be the biggest answer to the question marks. And having men that understand that we're all in this together, And I think there's slightly, we have an edge on the population. There are more women than men. We just need to change the balance in the blockchain ecosystem a little bit. But no, I think just stepping into who you are as a woman is the most powerful thing that you can do, and just do what you're amazing at. And naysayers can go by the wayside, and just be and do. And I'm just so excited about what's being done right now by women that I think we're in a good place.
I just wanted to say, I appreciate that question because it's the disembodied female. So you're saying, okay, not with a body.
It's hard for me to relate.
Yes, no, but on an online community where you're just a name, and people aren't going to actually see you, and I think that's an interesting thing because then you get really more into the psychology of what's going on, and yeah, the psychology of being female is still totally built into our world experience, and I think of Gamergate, and so because I know a lot about sort of media and game industries in that world, and I mean, women get slaughtered in those online spaces, even though they don't have a body in there. So, yeah, I just think that creating supportive communities and creating that empower women to take. I love Marie is already super strong and powerful, but I like finding the pathways for women to make the steps to get to that point. And but I'm an educator, and I'm with women who are 18 and that age. But I think we have to help start finding all the pathways. So that's why I think that communities and panels and all this sort of thing are very important, and supportive men as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If I can just give my insight.
Really
I hope
quick.
This is not mansplaining or anything.
Really quick.
But I'm deep in the kind of the online sphere, Twitter, crypto Twitter, and one ethos that I've noticed is the pseudonymous ethos, or the anonymous, which is how Satoshi started. Was we don't know he's a man, he's a woman. It's a pure meritocracy where we just look at his code. And I talk with a lot of anon accounts that I know for a fact are conservative black men. And for some reason, they feel that they need to hide their identity. And I think it's because people are going to assume that they're leftists or Democrats or whatever. So I know the community is kind of conservative, and they kind of have an allergy to identity politics. And I empathize. And basically my view is that I don't think we can solve identity politics with identity politics. What if everything was submitted pseudonymously or anonymously, so where we can have a pure meritocracy and remove the bias?
I love it. I think we should make that a mission.
Disembodiment?
Yeah, well, I just want to say
We
that
have to go, ladies.
bias, studying bias and algorithms and all that sort of stuff is very common. But I also think you can't strip people of their experience. I mean, you can't. We're all different, so it's really learning empathy, I think. Exactly. Because you can't. But I still think it's a very interesting question, and I think there's going to be a place for that. But
Thank you guys so much. Yay.